The branch looked calm in the way banks always tried to look calm. Soft lighting, neutral walls, quiet beeps from the queue kiosk, and a line that moved slowly enough to make people second-guess their patience. Darius Whitaker stood near the rope divider, holding a folder tight against his chest. He was a black man in his early 30s, dressed neatly in a work jacket and clean jeans, the kind of outfit that said he took today seriously even if he didn't have a suit. His eyes kept flicking down to the papers in the folder like rereading them could guarantee they'd be accepted. Inside, a cashier's check, a bill of sale, and the one thing he cared about more than the money itself, proof that this wasn't some random transaction. This was a step forward. When the screen flashed his number, Darius walked to the counter and offered a polite smile. "Hi," he said. "I need to deposit a cashier's check and get a certified receipt for the deposit." The teller barely looked up. Her nameplate read, Paige Hollis. Paige took the check between two fingers and glanced at it, then at Darius, then back at the check. Her expression didn't soften. "This is a large amount," Paige said, voice flat. "It is," Darius replied evenly. "It's a cashier's check from a dealership buyback. I'm depositing it into my account." Paige typed for a few seconds, eyes narrowing at the monitor. "Do you have two forms of ID?" she asked. Darius nodded, already prepared. He slid his driver's license and passport card forward. "Right here." Paige examined them longer than necessary. She turned the driver's license slightly under the overhead light like she was searching for defects. Then she compared the photo to Darius's face with a look that didn't feel like verification. It felt like suspicion. Finally, she said, "Your account is flagged." Darius blinked once. "Flagged for what?" Paige's eyes stayed on the screen. "I can't see details," she said, even though the way her gaze moved suggested she could. "But when an account is flagged, we can't process large deposits until it's cleared." Darius kept his voice calm. "This is my account," he said. "What needs to be cleared?" Paige shrugged slightly, like it wasn't her problem. "It could be anything," she said. "Verification, security, compliance." Darius's jaw tightened, but he didn't raise his voice. "Okay," he said. "So who can clear it?" Paige typed again, then said, "You'll need to speak to a manager." "Great," Darius replied, relieved that there was at least a next step. "Please call them." Paige didn't call immediately. Instead, she looked up at Darius with a faint, impatient smile. "Before I do," she said, "I need to ask, where did you get this check?" Darius's eyes narrowed slightly. "From the dealership," he said. "It's a buyback after a dispute. The check is from their bank." Paige's eyebrows lifted like she didn't believe that explanation was possible. "A dispute," she repeated. Darius inhaled slowly. "Yes," he said. "The car had issues. It went through arbitration. The check is the settlement." Paige looked down at the check again. "Uh-huh," she said. "And you want to deposit it today?" "Yes," Darius said. "That's why I'm here." Paige stared at him for a beat that felt just a little too long, then turned her head and signaled to someone behind the counter. A security guard near the lobby glanced over. His badge read, Len Park. Len didn't approach yet, but his attention was on Darius in a way that made Darius's shoulders stiffen. He'd been in banks before. He knew the difference between normal security awareness and being treated like a potential incident. Paige picked up her phone. "Manager to Station 3, she said into it, voice sharp. Then she set it down and added, almost casually, "Just so you know, if the check ends up being fraudulent, we'll have to file a report." Darius stared at her. "It's a cashier's check," he said carefully, "from a major dealership's issuing bank." Paige's expression didn't change. "People try things," she said. Darius wanted to ask what, exactly, about him suggested he was trying things, but he didn't. He kept his hands visible on the counter and forced his tone to remain level. "I'm asking you to do a standard deposit," he said, "with standard verification." Paige gave a small shrug like she had all day to be dismissive. We'll see what the manager says. A minute later, a man in a suit jacket approached, posture stiff with the confidence of someone who enjoyed being the final answer. Stephen Rudd, branch manager. He didn't introduce himself at first. He simply looked at Darius's documents, then at Paige, then at Darius again. What seems to be the issue? Stephen asked Paige, without making eye contact with Darius. Paige spoke quickly. Large cashier's check, she said. Account flagged. Customer wants to deposit immediately. Stephen finally looked at Darius. His expression was polite, but his eyes were measuring. Sir, Stephen said, sometimes our system places holds for security reasons. Darius nodded. I understand holds, he said. I'm not asking you to release funds today. I'm asking you to accept the deposit and give me a receipt showing it was deposited. Stephen's mouth tightened slightly, as if Darius had spoken too precisely. We need to ensure the check is legitimate, Stephen said. It's a cashier's check, Darius repeated, still calm. If you want to verify, you can call the issuing bank. The routing and check number are right there. Paige cut in. We don't call for every check, she said. Darius looked at her, then back to Stephen. Then what do you do? He asked. Stephen's tone remained smooth. We follow our internal protocols, he said. And right now, the system is advising against processing this transaction at the teller line. Darius felt a cold frustration crawl up his spine. So where do I process it? He asked. Because you're holding my IDs, you're implying I'm a fraud risk, and you're not giving me a path forward. Stephen held up a hand. Let's not escalate, he said. Darius blinked. I'm not escalating, he replied evenly. I'm asking a question. Stephen glanced at Len Park, the security guard, as if to silently say, be ready. Len shifted his stance, subtle but visible. Darius noticed and hated that he noticed, because noticing it meant he'd been forced into that mental space again, the one where he had to prove he wasn't a threat while trying to do something ordinary. He kept his tone calm. Could you tell me what the flag is? He asked. What category? What triggered it? Stephen shook his head. We can't disclose security flags, he said. Darius held his gaze. Then how do I resolve something you won't describe? He asked. Stephen's expression hardened, just slightly. You can contact our customer support line, he said, or return with additional documentation. Darius's eyes narrowed. Like what? Stephen gestured vaguely at the folder. More proof of funds, he said. More proof of source. Darius's voice stayed controlled but sharper. It's a cashier's check, he said. The source is literally printed on it. Paige leaned in, voice low but not low enough. He's getting agitated, she murmured to Stephen. Darius turned to her. I'm not agitated, he said clearly. I'm being persistent because you're refusing a normal service. Stephen straightened like he'd reached his limit. Sir, he said, we reserve the right to refuse transactions that present security concerns. Darius stared at him. What concern? He asked. Stephen didn't answer. Instead, he said, we will not be processing this deposit today. For a moment, Darius couldn't speak, not because he was confused, but because he felt the familiar, humiliating weight of being shut down without cause. He looked around and saw a woman in line watching, eyes wide. He saw a man pretending not to listen. He saw Len Park watching like Darius might explode. Darius took a breath and did what he always did when a system tried to trap him emotionally. He switched to documentation. Okay, Darius said evenly. I want that in writing. Stephen blinked. Excuse me? I want a written statement that the branch refused to accept a cashier's check deposit, Darius said, with your name and today's date. Stephen's face tightened. We don't provide. Yes, you do, Darius replied calmly. You can write a short refusal note or provide a transaction refusal receipt. Any bank can document a refusal. Stephen's jaw worked. Paige stared at Darius like he'd broken a rule by knowing his rights. Darius continued, still calm. Also, please give me my IDs back. Page slid the IDs across the counter reluctantly. Stephen leaned in. "Sir," he said, voice lower, "you're making this bigger than it needs to be." Darius met his eyes. "I didn't make it big," he said quietly. "I made it accurate." Stephen exhaled through his nose. "Fine," he said. "I'll give you a business card. You can call corporate." Darius held out his hand. Stephen gave him the card. Stephen Rudd, branch manager, as if it was a favor. Darius looked at it, then asked one more question, calm and precise. "Before I leave," Darius said, "I want to know, are you refusing because of the check or because of me?" Page's eyes widened. Stephen's face hardened. "That's an inappropriate accusation," Stephen snapped. Darius nodded once. "Then prove it's not," he said. "Verify the check. Take the deposit. Give me a receipt." Stephen's voice went cold. "Sir, if you continue, I'll have you escorted out." Len Park took one step closer. Darius felt his pulse spike, but his voice stayed steady. "I'm leaving," he said, "because I'm not going to be turned into the problem." He gathered his folder slowly, deliberately, making sure no sudden movement could be misread. Then he walked out of the branch with his shoulders tight and his dignity intact. At least as intact as it could be after being treated like suspicion was a service. Outside, the air felt cleaner. Darius stood under the awning for a moment, rain misting the sidewalk, and called the issuing bank number printed on the check. A recorded menu, then a representative. He verified the check in 3 minutes. "It's valid," the representative said. "It's been issued and funded." Darius closed his eyes briefly, so the bank could have verified it. They chose not to. He turned and looked back through the glass at the lobby. He could see Stephen Rudd standing behind the counter, talking to Page. He could see Len Park returning to his post. Everything inside looked normal again, like the refusal hadn't happened. Darius pulled up the bank's corporate complaint portal on his phone. He started typing date, time, branch location, names. Then he paused, remembering something a friend who worked in compliance had once told him. "Ask for the camera review. The footage tells the truth when people rewrite it." Darius walked back inside, not to argue, not to raise his voice, just to request one thing, calmly and officially. Stephen looked up, already irritated. "Sir, I told you. I want to file a formal complaint," Darius said evenly, "and I want you to preserve the security footage from this counter for the last 20 minutes. I want it retained for corporate review." Page's face flickered. Stephen's posture stiffened. "We don't release footage to customers," he said quickly. "I'm not asking you to release it to me," Darius replied. "I'm asking you to preserve it for auditors, because what happened here needs to be reviewed exactly as it occurred." Stephen stared at him for a beat, and for the first time, Darius saw a hint of concern in the manager's eyes. Small, controlled, but real, because Stephen Rudd knew what the cameras would show. Not a threatening customer, not an unstable man, just a calm person being refused for reasons no one wanted to say out loud. Stephen forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We'll note your request," he said. Darius nodded. "Good," he said, "because footage doesn't forget." As Darius turned to leave the second time, he saw something that made his stomach drop in a different way. Paige Hollis leaned towards Stephen and whispered urgently, her face pale. Stephen's expression tightened. Then he looked up at Darius, too late to hide it. Whatever the cameras captured, it was about to become the most important part of this story. Darius didn't go home right away. He sat in his car across the street from the branch, engine off, watching the bank doors open and close while rain traced thin lines down his windshield. His hands were steady, but his chest still felt tight, less from anger now and more from the old familiar exhaustion of being treated like a risk for existing. He opened his notes app and wrote everything down while it was fresh. Paige Hollis, teller, held his IDs, implied fraud. Stephen Rudd, branch manager, refused deposit, threatened escort Len Park, security guard, stepped closer when escorted was mentioned. Timestamps, arrival, refusal, request to preserve footage, verification call to issuing bank, check confirmed valid. Then he submitted a formal complaint through corporate, attaching screenshots of the check verification call record and a photo of Stephen's business card. He expected the next step to take days. It took hours. At 3:48 p.m., Darius's phone rang. The caller ID displayed the bank's corporate number. He answered. "Hello?" A calm, professional voice came through. "Hello, Mr. Whitaker. My name is Vanessa Bird. I'm with Corporate Client Care and Compliance. I'm calling regarding the complaint you submitted today." Darius sat up straighter. "Yes," he said. "First," Vanessa said, "are you still in possession of the cashier's check?" "Yes," Darius replied. "Have you attempted to deposit it at another branch yet?" she asked. "No," Darius said. "I wanted this investigated first." "Understood," Vanessa said. "I'm going to ask a few questions, and I want you to know this call is being documented." Darius exhaled slowly. "Okay." Vanessa asked him to walk through the interaction in order. Darius kept it factual, concise, and precise. He didn't dramatize, he didn't interpret motives as facts. He simply described behavior and words. "Your account is flagged. We can't disclose. We reserve the right. I'll have you escorted out." When Darius finished, Vanessa was silent for a beat. Then she said, "Thank you. We have already contacted the branch and requested preservation of footage from Station 3. Darius's jaw tightened. "Good," he said. Vanessa continued, "I also want you to know that cashier's checks of this type can be verified through a standard process, and refusal to accept a deposit without offering a documented resolution path is not consistent with our service guidelines." Darius let that sentence settle in his chest like a small release. "So what happens now?" he asked. "We're reviewing footage and internal logs," Vanessa said. "That includes teller system notes, account flag reasons, and manager authorization history. If any employee entered notes in your profile today, we will see it." Darius's eyes narrowed. "Notes?" he repeated. "Yes," Vanessa said calmly. "Some branches document interactions. We're verifying accuracy." Darius felt a cold ripple of concern, because he understood how this worked. One vague note, customer agitated, could follow you, haunt future transactions, quietly justify future refusals. "I want to request," Darius said carefully, "that any inaccurate notes added today be removed." Vanessa's tone remained professional. "If inaccuracies are found, corrections will be made," she said. "We will address it." The call ended with Vanessa giving him a case number and one more promise. "You will receive a follow-up within 24 hours. Darius stared at the screen after hanging up. Then he watched the bank entrance again. Inside that building, Stephen Rudd was probably telling Paige Hollis to stay consistent, probably telling Len Park it was policy, probably preparing a story. But stories were fragile, cameras weren't. The next morning at 9:17 a.m, Vanessa called again. "Mr. Whitaker," she said, "we completed the initial review." Darius's heart beat hard. "Okay," he said. Vanessa didn't waste time. "The cashier's check is valid," she said. "We confirmed issuance and funding." "I already verified that," Darius replied, voice tight. "Yes," Vanessa said. "The issue is not the check." Darius sat very still. "Then what was it?" he asked. Vanessa paused just long enough to be careful. "We reviewed the footage from Station 3, she said. "We also reviewed the branch employee logins at the time of your visit." Darius's hand tightened around his phone. "And?" he asked. Vanessa's voice stayed calm, but the words were heavy. "The footage shows you remained calm, maintained appropriate distance, and made reasonable requests," she said. "It does not support the internal note entered by the branch that you were aggressive or refused to comply." Darius's stomach dropped. "They put that in my account?" he asked. "Yes," Vanessa said. A note was entered at 2:26 p.m. by teller Paige Hollis. It stated that you raised your voice and caused a disturbance. Darius's mouth went dry. That's a lie, he said quietly. We can see the video, Vanessa replied. It contradicts the note. For a second, Darius couldn't speak. The humiliation wasn't just that he'd been refused, it was that they'd tried to brand him as the reason he was refused, so the system would protect itself. What happens to that note? Darius asked. It has been removed, Vanessa said, and a correction entry has been placed indicating that the prior note was inaccurate and did not reflect observed behavior. Darius closed his eyes briefly. Relief hit first, hot and sudden. Then anger came behind it, slower and heavier. Vanessa continued, We also found that your account was not flagged in the way it was described to you. There was no compliance hold preventing acceptance of the deposit. Darius opened his eyes. So they lied, he said. Vanessa chose her words carefully. They provided incorrect information, she said, and they did not follow protocol for cashier's check verification. Darius's voice stayed calm, but it carried a sharper edge now. What was the real reason then? He asked. Vanessa didn't answer directly. She didn't have to. The silence said enough. Then she said, We're taking corrective action at the branch level. I can't share personnel outcomes in detail, but this is being escalated to regional leadership. Darius exhaled slowly. Okay, he said. And, Vanessa added, we've arranged for your deposit to be completed today at a branch of your choice. A manager will be prepared to assist you immediately. We can also provide you a written confirmation that the deposit refusal was improper. Darius's throat tightened. I want that confirmation, he said. You'll have it, Vanessa replied. Additionally, we've placed a service note on your account ensuring expedited handling for the deposit, without negative labeling. Darius let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Thank you, he said. Vanessa's tone softened slightly, still professional, but human. I'm sorry this happened, she said, and I'm glad you requested footage preservation. It helped us see the truth. Darius ended the call and sat in silence for a moment. Then he got in his car. He chose a different branch. Not because he should have to, but because he wanted the deposit done cleanly, without the walls of yesterday watching him. At the new branch, a manager met him at the door. Her nameplate read, Lena Morell. Mr. Whitaker, Lena asked, warm but serious. I'm Lena. We've been expecting you. Please come with me. There was no rope line, no prolonged ID inspection, no security guard inching closer. Just procedure. Lena sat him down in a small office, closed the door, and looked him in the eye. I read the case summary, she said. I'm sorry. Darius nodded once. I just need the deposit and a certified receipt, he said. You'll get both, Lena said. She took the cashier's check, verified it through the issuing bank process, exactly as Darius had suggested, and processed the deposit. She printed a receipt, stamped it, and handed it to him with both hands. There, Lena said. Deposited, certified receipt. And here is the written confirmation from corporate that yesterday's refusal was improper. Darius looked at the letterhead, the case number, the language that mattered. The transaction should have been accepted. His chest loosened. As he stood to leave, Lena spoke again. If you want, she said carefully, corporate can also send you a copy of the corrected account note in writing. Some customers like to keep that for their records. Darius nodded. Yes, he said. I want it. Lena nodded back. You'll have it by email. Later that afternoon, Darius passed the original branch again, by coincidence, not intention. He saw the same glass doors, the same lobby calm. But he also saw something else. A regional manager speaking with staff near the counter, posture stiff, clipboard in hand. The bank looked normal from the outside, but inside, a record existed now. A record that couldn't be hand-waved away, because it wasn't based on vibes. It wasn't based on a teller's invented note. It was based on security footage. Darius didn't walk in. He didn't need to. He had what he came for, plus something else he hadn't expected. Proof that the system could be forced to correct itself if you documented, if you stayed steady, if you demanded review. That night, at home, Darius placed the certified receipt and corporate letter into the same folder as the check. He didn't frame it. He didn't celebrate it. He simply filed it the way you file something important, as a reminder that his calm had been real, even when they tried to rewrite him into a threat. And if anyone ever tried again, he'd have the most powerful witness of all, the camera that saw the full story.